Hey everybody, David here. Detail ended up being my trail name. This is a review of all the gear I took with me from Campo to Kennedy Meadows. This is not typical what you take on a through hike, a complete through hike. I have a previous video of what I was supposed to bring. A couple items changed, and this is my final product. Keep in mind, this is just information for you to plan from. Take it or leave it. I'm not looking for criticism or critiques. So here we go. I'll start by going through the bag the way I had it packed every day, and then I'll break it down into each item. We'll go through it in detail. So this is a little bit more lengthy video. I'm going to do this one-handed, so bear with me. So starting in the top here, I've got my Ditty bag. Everything's packed horizontally here. This is my thermarest. My Big Angus. Copper spurt. And in the very bottom here, I stuffed a couple garbage bags. Flop that open. A couple hats. Always wear one at a time. My other hat, my sun hat, my puffy jacket, my platypus, 3-liter, what would be my food bag, which is usually full of food, obviously not right now, my clothing bag, and in the bottom there is my 20-degree mummy bag, Z-Pack mummy bag. I always pack my pack light in the bottom to heavy on top, and these water bottles, I learned it took me 3/4 of the way through. I was having trouble with my my shoulders and stuff, and I was packing like so many people do with your water bottles and your side pouches here, and that for me was a mistake. I put them in the top, and that made a world of difference. So keep that in mind. I realize everybody bakes a cake a different way. This is how I do it. If you don't like it, I really don't care. But if you're having issues, try it out, all right? Because it really did make a difference for me. So anyway, clothing, water. That was what was inside. On the outside, I had my Crocs, one on each side here. And then I had this awesome thing that I love, my little pot, little Tupperware, insulated Tupperware. Inside that was my water scooper, so I could scoop water from a source. Inside that was my MSR pocket rocket. Also in this side was my, in this little bag is my DeLorme GPS. In the bottom is my Tyvek ground sheet for my tent. This side, my spoon. And then in here was my pot, my titanium pot with my fuel canister inside of it. In the bottom side here would be my tent poles, and my stakes are also inside there. Flipping this thing over, I had these pouches on front that I discussed in my previous video, along with one on the other side. I always carried just one. I started with 2 bottles like this. These are like, I don't know, 3/4 of a liter, and I ended up scrapping one of them. I only needed one at a time, so I just carry that on the front. In the hip belt pouches, which were crucial, I used them both, and they're both always full. That had things like my stick pick attachment, ibuprofen, my electrolyte tablets that I always used, some candy sometimes, just little things that I always wanted to get to. Both these things were almost plumb full all the time. So yeah, that's the pack. That's what I carried, and now we'll go through everything in detail. Alright, we'll start with the sleeping bag, going through everything in detail. This 20-degree mummy Z-Packs was excellent. I often slept with it just with my feet zipped into it, and used the rest of it like a quilt on top of my my thermarest. And you're insulated from the ground that way if you're on some kind of sleeping pad, and it works like a quilt. I'd often sleep in shorts or my thermal bottoms, or sometimes naked, and yeah, it was plenty. And when I did zip it up, it was clammy a lot of the time, so it was plenty. 20 degree was plenty for me. There was only one night coming down off from Baden Powell that it got down to 28 degrees. Woke up with frost on the tent and stuff, but I was still plenty warm. I could have put clothes on if I got colder. So 20 degree bag was great. The Thermarest, X-Lite, sorry. That's a great pad. I saw a majority of people with that pad. I did see a couple people with holes in them, and you know, soaking them in water, trying to find holes and patch them. I never had a problem. I'm pretty careful about stuff, so that worked good for me. Would recommend it, yes. 2 hats. I carried baseball cap, either that one or another one, and I like the mesh in the back, help keep my head cool, or my sun hat, depending on the weather, and both of those I would take again. These zip-off shorts, yes, I liked them. Would I bring them again? Probably not zip-off shorts. I probably, well, at least from the section I did, which was Campo to Kennedy Meadows, I would not probably bring these zip-off pants. I would probably just bring 2 pairs of shorts, because I never use these legs. I always just wore them as shorts. So shorts, thermal top and bottom. I didn't use them a lot, but I probably wouldn't leave without them, because when I wanted them, I wanted them. Shirts, I use these Fila. I got them at Costco. They're like $10 a piece. They dried quick. They didn't feel like shit under my backpack, all wet with sweat. I mean, within 15 minutes, if I took my pack off, they would be dry. If I had a decent breeze or hot sun. And they're just kind of those synthetic, you know, athletic type shirts, and I loved them. Socks, darn tough all the way. I carried 3 pair, and I would highly recommend bringing 3 pair. I cannot stress enough keeping your feet clean as much as you can, changing those socks. I never went more than 2 days in 1 pair of dirty socks. Then I'd switch or I'd wash them. I mean, good clean feet, comfortable socks, the right shoes were game changers for a lot of people, and I'll go into that more when I get to my shoes. The ULA rain skirt, I never used it, not once, but would I leave it home? No, I would take it with me again. I got drizzled on the first day, just a little bit, and I pulled out the rain jacket and used that. But I never had to get the skirt out. But I wouldn't leave home without it, because then you regret it, right? The bandanas, I carried 4. The 2 black ones I used as gaiters, which they worked pretty good. They weren't as good as gaiters. Yeah, stuff still got in there, particularly the little horsetail seeds off the grass that poke you. I might consider buying gaiters. In fact, I probably will buy gaiters, but they work fine for me. I didn't have to get gaiters in the beginning. The one blue one I would wear around my neck to keep me cool. I'd soak it down with cool water every time I could to help regulate my heat, and it helped keep the sun off the back of my neck and stuff. The 4th one was for straining, you know, really gross water, so I'd strain it through the bandana first and then filter it. I probably could have got away with leaving the extra one at home and just use the one around my neck for filtering also. My stocking cap, fleece stocking cap, excellent. Would not leave home without that. The gloves, again, wouldn't leave home without them. Were they adequate for really, really cold weather? That's debatable. I don't get cold easily, but they were real minimal, but they're cozy. Those are good gloves. I just got them at like Home Depot. They're even touch sensitive for the screen, the phone screen. Moving to my puffy. This outdoor research puffy was, those are one of those must-have gear items. People brought like ski type jackets, real thin ski type jackets, and I would never do that. Majority of people had a puffy, and these are one of those items you don't go without. They are, sometimes I used it just as, you know, a windbreaker. Sometimes I used it, you know, as a pillow. Always in a cool evening when I was done and hanging around camp, that always went on first thing after I took my shoes off. I love that jacket. I might even buy another one just to wear in general. And then the bag, the stuff sack, the Z-Pack stuff sack that doubles as a pillow. Like I said before, I didn't really use that as a pillow because this thing, you squish this stuff, and along with the other ultralight stuff like the Thermarest, everything gets so damn noisy that even with earplugs you still kind of hear it. And I was always afraid that I was disturbing other people around me. If people were camped around me, that I roll around and everything crunches. It sounds like you're rolling in a bunch of garbage bags or a bunch of plastic tarps. It's just really obnoxious. So I really didn't use that. I would use my puffy sometimes as a pillow or nothing at all. So that's debatable. I wouldn't like toss this and replace it. It's not worth it. It's super light the way it is, even with the fleece. So I'll probably take that again. Moving on to, this is actually my food bag. My earth sack I ended up sending home. I'll go into that more when I get to it. I went to Big 5 when I was in Big Bear and just picked up this drawstring stuff sack. It was lighter, and the earth sack didn't fold down very well. I didn't like it. It was real stiff. It was like using a double burlap sack. It was just unnecessary at the time. I never had a problem with critters. I always just slept with my food, and it worked fine. The two little bottles are one was for olive oil, the big one was, and the little one was for Chipotle Tapatio. I carried both those all the time, and I used them all the time. I think the olive oil was kind of critical in keeping enough calories in me, because sometimes I was hungry but nothing in my bag sounded good. So when you dump a bunch of that into your dinner at night, I think it really helps out. So yes, I'd take both of those again. This is my cook kit here. This thing I absolutely loved. I would never leave home without this. It's the insulated Tupperware, if I can get it out. You get these in a 2-pack at about any grocery store. They come with a lid, and what I did was I boiled my water and then dump it in here with whatever food I was going to eat, shake it up, and then leave it in there and just let it sit while I cooked whatever, cocoa, tea, apple cider, or even a second half of the meal. The pot was available and it wasn't dirty. All I had in it was water generally, and this was easy to clean. I just dump a little water in it, or maybe water and sand or water and some sage, and just shake the hell out of it, dump it, and then give it a final rinse, and it was clean. I mean, as clean as it's gonna get when you're out there. So that was this. I would never go without this. I love this. Pot was great. Spoon was great. My little MSR pocket rocket was great. The stove canisters, I'm using this as an example. I started with one of these big ones, but I ended up switching to the smaller ones just to shed some weight, and they lasted me plenty. I ran out, but I always was aware that I was going to run out, so it wasn't a big deal. Yeah, and then the little mesh bag to carry it all worked great. So all those items I would do again. Crocs, absolutely. I would say about 50% of people had Crocs, another 50% had flip-flops or something else. In my previous video, someone had suggested throwing those out, and I can't imagine not having those. When you take your shoes off at the end of the day, or even when you're taking a break, you know, you want something on your feet. You're not going to walk around through sand and pokey shit with bare feet or socks on. So you need something, and the Crocs are great. Absolutely bring those again. garbage bags underneath them. I kind of went over those already. Those were my liners for when it got rainy. I would take all my stuff out of my pack and then repack it, everything in the garbage bags. That was my waterproofing. No pack cover. And I only needed to do that once, and it wasn't even worth the effort at the time because it didn't rain hard enough. I did actually get really lucky on the weather. I mean, nothing extremely hot. One rainstorm when I was in Julian, but I was in Julian and I was in a hotel and I just watched it go by. And so no weather to speak of for me. I got terribly lucky. Going in El Nino year, I guess, because that's when the weather seems to be best. My pack, love the pack. I think the only thing I would say about this pack is it did get a little uncomfortable on the hip and shoulders when it was maxed out weight wise. When I had to carry, 5 or 6 liters of water and 4 or 5 days of food, it was heavy and it felt pretty uncomfortable at times. The other 2 packs that I saw that were popular were the ULA and I don't know what model, ULA and the Osprey. And I'm gonna look into both those because I think this pack could be great in certain sections, but other packs would be better at other times. So I'm gonna look into that, possibly maybe get a second pack here, just depending on where I'm at. So we'll move on over here to my Ditty bag. So this the DeLorme I carried, that was a request of the family, and that's fine. It really, I didn't notice it, and it was kind of interesting to see my path online and see my speed. My speed, average day, average weather, average terrain was about 2.5 miles an hour. And if I did all my math based on that 2.5 miles an hour, I was pretty right on. I know when I was going to arrive somewhere. And so that was kind of handy to know what I was doing and the speeds and stuff. Sunglasses, absolutely down in Southern California. Those are particularly dark. My eyes are kind of light sensitive, so I took dark shades. That's my little thin miniature wallet. I took I took my insurance card, my ID, 1 debit card, and some cash. And that's all I carried in that thing. The knife next to it is not the knife I carried. That was just a reminder to talk about the multi-tool. I took a little tiny Leatherman squirt, I think it was. And I really didn't use it a whole lot, but when I did, it's one of those items you're glad you have. And yes, I would take it again. The Black Diamond Revolt headlamp was great. Never ran out of a charge. I did quite a bit of night hiking, and as long as I remembered to charge all my stuff when I was somewhere where I could charge, it was always there for me. Yes, I'd take that again. Sunblock and chapstick, absolutely. I use that from day one. As I went on in my trip, I stopped using sunblock really, except on my nose and on the back of my neck, because my arms and legs got so leathered up from the sun that I really actually didn't need sunblock on them after a while. This external battery, this particular battery, I don't know the brand of it, but jumper stack, whatever, I would not bring that same one again, because it only gave me about a charge and a half. But I would absolutely bring another one with me. I ran out of battery. My phone would last about a day and a half, 2 days, and most of the time I just used it to take pictures, video, and check my maps. I actually had this sent to me because I wasn't going to make it without it. So yes, I would recommend bringing a battery charger or maybe a solar panel, whatever you prefer. This was what's left of my notepad, and yes, I use my notepad and a little tiny pencil that I picked up out of a hiker box. Sent my pen home or threw it away or something. I used the notepad generally when I was afraid I was going to run out of battery and not be able to read my maps or the water report, and so I'd scratch down notes or mileage points. So that was handy. Yeah, I'd probably take a notepad again. Toothbrush and toothpaste, of course you'd take that. Neosporin. I picked up the lotion, and always had hand sanitizer too, and they were good for all sorts of things, including chafing. Earplugs. There's obviously, I have 2 ears, but I don't know where the other plug is. I had a couple sets of earplugs. I gave one set away to somebody. And absolutely take earplugs, man. You get into places where there's a lot of people camping, and like I mentioned before, this ultralight gear, when people roll over next to you in a tent, it squeaks and sounds like garbage bags rolling around. So the earplugs were great. People snoring, oh God. Take the earplugs, you'll thank me. Little bottle of bleach in an eyedropper. I used that a few times when I accidentally or thought I got dirty water and clean stuff. So yeah, I'd bring that again. Soap. I took a little bit of soap. These are actually rocks in here. But I carried just little tiny pieces of soap like that, and yeah, I use those at campgrounds. The stuff sack, my Ditty bag, stuff sack. Yeah, great stuff sack. Simple Sea to Summit sack. The earbuds, music. Absolutely bring music. I would anyway. Through those really hard, dry, boring sections, I'd put the music in. Books on tape, or podcasts, you know. Get through those boring sections. It was great to have. These gator clips, a friend gave those to me right before I left, sent them to me. And I hung those on top of my bag, and those are for laundry. I would clean my socks or change my shirt and hang whatever was wet on the back of my pack, and in that sun it would dry within an hour or two, easy. So that's a cool item to pick up if you want. The stick pick slides on to the end of your trekking pole. I use this a lot, and yes, I'd recommend it, absolutely, and I'd bring it again for sure. This was a little remote if you wanted to take remote pictures. I didn't really use it a lot, but it's so light that I think I'd just bring it again, because if when I did need it, I wanted it. What is this? The Cuban fiber tape in here. Some needles, some electrolyte stuff. I didn't use any of it, but I wouldn't leave home without it again. I did end up giving away some moleskin and stuff like that to people because I didn't need it, and I'll get into that later. My double USB charger. This was an awesome item because I could charge obviously 2 items at a time. The one thing I screwed up on is this black cord that I carried with me isn't compatible with most of my items. It wouldn't charge very fast. It would charge at a fraction of the rate of this cord. So that's my screw up. I would, before you leave home, test your charger cords and make sure they work. They're, you know, the appropriate cord for your devices. But both of those I'd bring again for sure. Water is a big deal out there. I carried 2 1-liters, and then I carried a 3/4 liter is what I called it. That's what I carried on the front. That's all I needed, along with this 3-liter dirty platypus. This is my dirty, hence the skull and crossbones on the cap there. This the Sawyer screws right onto here, and I'd squeeze everything full. When I was done, everything would be full, and I'd leave with this with water in it too, if I needed that much water. And that was a great setup. It's really simple, and you know that the water in here is always dirty, and there's no screwing stuff up. I would absolutely do it that way again. I didn't need much water. I would average temperatures out there in the desert, I would go about 1 liter every 7 miles. That was my math. But not everybody can do that. Everybody sweats different. Everybody needs or doesn't need water at different rates. So do what you need to do. That's what worked for me. Even in the longest stretches where there wasn't supposed to be water for 30 miles, I never carried more than 4 or 5 liters. Because there was always a water cache. Don't count on them, but we could count on them. We got, you know, word from other people who had just passed through that would text us and let us know that, yeah, there's water there, you can count on it. So make friends, stay in contact with people ahead of you. They can let you know what you can count on or not count on when it comes to water. This is my filler from the dirty spots. Obviously, you just scoop water out of this and pour it into the bag. I watch people dip in their silly Sawyer bags or their platypus or whatever in the creeks, and it would just, it's mind-blowing to watch people do things the hard way to me. So do yourself a favor, cut yourself a bottle and just scoop it out. It's a lot faster, a lot more efficient. My shoes. I love these shoes. I would not take any other shoe. These Sportivas were awesome. I actually only saw 2 other people with these same shoes. The wear and tear on these is minimal. These have about 780 miles on them total. And the insoles don't have much wear. I actually would wash the insoles when I got a chance and just let them, make sure things get dry before you go walking. Don't walk with wet, you know, sweaty feet or insoles that you've washed that are still kind of damp. That's just a recipe for blisters. I absolutely lucked out. I didn't get one single blister, and I attribute that to keeping my feet clean and having shoes that fit perfect. The shoes that seemed to be the big item this year were the Ultras. I don't know what style they were, but I also saw a few problems people were having with those Ultras. The insoles wearing out, their insoles doing goofy things. People trying to replace the insoles but couldn't find anything that quite worked with them. And they seem to wear out a little bit faster than most other shoes. So that's just what I saw on trail about the Ultra. So you take it or leave it. My trekking poles, black diamond, carbon fiber, cork handled, love them. I washed the handles a couple times because they're getting funky, but otherwise they're held up great. No issues there. I'd take them again. Now to the items that I sent home or didn't take from my original video. That includes my silk liner for my sleeping bag. This, I'm kind of up in the air about this. I wouldn't need the R value in terms of staying warm, absolutely not. But my bag is probably pretty funky, and you know, washing that down bag is a big pain in the butt. And you know, when you wash down, it's never the same. So I probably still wouldn't bring this thing, at least not on a long distance trip, maybe on a local trip. But I didn't take this, I left it home. This windbreaker, this was the one item that in my previous video someone said that the rain jacket and this windbreaker had dual purpose and you should just leave it at home. That was a comment from my previous YouTube video. I use my rain jacket as a windbreaker because I sent this thing home about a week in, and you get into areas where the wind is absolutely constant and it's 30 or 40 or 50 mile an hour gusts, and the wind alone made me bananas. But not having a jacket that could break the wind and breathe really pissed me off, and I wish I had this back a couple times, because I'd use the rain jacket or I'd use my puffy and I'd be clammy and overheating or something. So I would bring my windbreaker next time and keep it. So that was a lesson there. That was the one item I kept cursing, sending back. This is my Columbia Silver Ridge shirt. I had a long sleeve and a short sleeve. I bought the short sleeve right before I left and had it sent in one of my resupply boxes. When I tried the long sleeve out, I hated it. I'm sure it's good for some people. I hated it. It soaked up water on my back, or sweat on my back, and it felt like shit. And it took twice or 3 times as long to dry as those synthetic shirts. So I sent it back first chance I got, along with the short sleeve one, and never used them. I kept the two Fila synthetic shirts and loved them. So that's what I'd do again. Wouldn't ever wear these. The Camelback, which was in my original video, I sent this back. Right before I left, I bought the Platypus, which was about an ounce or an ounce and a half lighter, and sent it back when I got down there. Or I sent this back and used my Platypus instead. And that was a really good decision, because the Platypus screws to the Sawyer, and like I already mentioned, and everything worked great that way. This is the hose to that Platypus. I used that the first day or two out there in that first stretch where you were supposedly supposed to have no water, and you know, for miles and miles. Well, I did 19 miles my first day, took like 7 liters of water, and about 15 or 16 miles in, I ended up dumping out 2 liters of water. So I decided after that that I did not need that hose anymore, and so I sent it back. This is my earth sack. That was my food bag. That was, like I said, it's like it's partially made of Kevlar, I think, and so the critters can't chew through it and have a hard time getting to your food. I never had a problem with critters. I always brought my food bag in with me. Yeah, there were a couple people who had issues with critters, mice getting into their food, but they left their bag outside, and in spots where I would never leave my bag, where obviously mice are present. And so that was kind of, I think, error on the part of the person who had issues. I didn't like this bag because it didn't fold down very small. It kind of seemed to take up room in my pack that I did not, I wasn't okay with. So I bought that stuff sack and sent this back. You used a cheapo drawstring stuff sack. Would I take this again? I think if I was in bear country, or an area where there's a lot more critter problems like raccoons or something, yeah, I'd probably take this, or I'd upgrade to the bear version. I think it's even more heavy duty, and I'd just hang it at night. Otherwise, would I bring it on the section I did from Campo to Kennedy Meadows? No, not a chance. Moving on to my tent. This is the Copper Spur, the Big Angus Copper Spur UL1. I love this tent. It really did. And I got into some super windy situations with it. And as long as I tied it out and staked it out as much as I could, it held up great. No problems with that. No problems with moisture, nothing. The only issue I have with it is it's too small to bring my pack in with me. And in a section like the desert where there's scorpions and snakes and ants and whatever else out there at night, especially at night, that come out, leaving my pack under the vestibule, it didn't make me feel cozy in the morning. I'd always check my pack, make sure nothing crawled on it or in it. So I think if I had to do it again, I'd take the 2-person, which most people did. Big Angus by far was the tent of choice out there. But the 2-person was more common, especially of this Copper Spur. So I'd probably take the 2-person if I went and did that same section again, just so I can bring my stuff in with me. At night, I would stick my trekking poles in the ground and kind of take my insoles of my shoes about halfway out and hang them off the tops of my poles. That kept the critters out. As far as I was concerned, nothing, no scorpions or anything, or crawling my shoes. But everything else I wanted or tried to bring in the tent with me. And at night, I'd basically unpack my whole pack and bring everything but the pack itself in the tent with me. And that worked. It got me by. The other issue, I made this Tyvek sheet and I love it, and it has these, I don't know if you can see in the video, let me get this one right here. I put these grommets in it. There's grommets under there that I stamped into it, and that keeps the Tyvek underneath the tent. That's partially how I got my name Detail, all the little details. But one thing I would have done different is I probably would have made this Tyvek like a triangle shape on the door side. So when I sat my tent or whatever, or my pack or socks, whatever I was throwing out of the tent, would have been on something fairly clean instead of the dirt on the ground. So I probably would have made this Tyvek come out to this corner here where the vestibule stakes out. Other than that, the Tyvek was a must-have. Worked great just to sit on when I took a break, so I don't have to get my ass dirty. I just throw that out on the ground. So yeah, that's the lowdown on all the gear I took. Campo to what ended up being Walker Pass. I didn't quite make it to Kennedy Meadows because of the fire. So this is not typical what you'd carry the whole hike. Just keep that in mind. If you're doing a complete through hike, this is probably not everything you need. This is just what I took. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment area. I'm not real good about getting back to people through YouTube. And if you have any comments in terms of complaints, you can save them for somebody else. I don't need to hear it. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for joining me.